Hello, I'm Barry Cunningham and I'm here to give you my top tips on getting your book published. I'm probably the most famous children's publisher in the world because I am the original publisher of Harry Potter. And now I'm the publisher of Chicken House, and we've brought to the world Cornelia Funke in English and the Tunnels series and lots of other great debut authors. So here are my top tips. One is why. You have to think very carefully who it is you want to write your children's book for. And I think the real trick in this is to imagine yourself back to the age you want to write for. Can you still feel the anger? Can you feel the imagination, the wonder of the age group that you're trying to portray? Because I think that's the most vital part of the inspiration of writing for children. My top tip 2 is planning. Now, a lot of writers like to use a storyboard, which is literally a drawn-out plot summary of where everything's going to occur. And that includes when you're going to include characters, when you're going to take characters out, when you're going to introduce new plot lines, and very importantly, where you plan your climaxes to keep your audience reading. My top tip, shall I do my fingers again? Yes. My top tip 3 is all about how you go about it. And I think there are some very important things in almost all children's books that are worth remembering. The first thing is humour. Now, in my experience, both crying and laughter are very, very close in children's books. Sometimes you don't know whether to laugh with fear or to cry with joy. And the way that you use humour, especially in dialogue, it's very, very important to engage children's attention. Also, what your characters actually look like and where they live, where the plot is located. It's very important to describe these. Children love to visualise. Also, levels of detail are very important. A very famous editor once said to me, "Barry, tell them what they eat." And it's very important to describe things like meals. Children love to know the detail of the action as well. So think about all those very simple guidelines in the how section of what to include in your book. My important point 4 is get your book read. It's really important to get some feedback from people who know about children's writing. Now, sadly, in this particular case, children are probably not the best examples. Children will, of course, adore your work, whatever it is. But try it out instead on your local librarian, a bookseller, a writing or reading group, anyone who can give you that very important feedback. And you can adjust your work to what appears to be actually working, reading it aloud. This is my top tip 5 on submission and actually sending your book in for possible publication. And I'm going to spend most time on it because it's probably the most misunderstood area. Now, there are 3 very important elements. Number 1 is the covering letter. And don't just skimp on this. Don't just say, "Dear sir, hope you read my manuscript." That won't do. What you have to have in your covering letter first is the reason why I should read your book, which is who it's aimed at, your inspiration, where it's going, and all the things that are very important to why anybody would want to read your book. Second, it's who you are. I want to be interested in you. It's about your passion. You don't have to be a motorcycling vicar, you don't have to be an undiscovered librarian, but you have to tell me what's special about you so that I can also think about that in relation to publishing and promoting your book. Lastly, it's very sensible to do some research. It's very sensible to find out who I am, what books I've published at the Chicken House, so that you can mention which books you're a fan of. And of course, I'm going to pay much more attention to your submission if I know that you've already enjoyed the books that I've published. So a little bit of research is very important. You'll be surprised that I get a lot of letters with, "Dear sir, please read my book." Well, the answer probably is no, I can't be bothered unless you tell me why. Number 2 in the procedure is a synopsis of the actual book. Now, I've had synopses which are frankly longer than the book itself, and I'm not interested in that level of detail. I don't have enough time. What I am interested in is one A4 single-sided sheet giving me the absolute bones of what happens in the story and perhaps a hint of what might happen in sequels. Lastly, I need 3 chapters, the very best bits from your book. Now, of course, they don't have to be the first 3 chapters. They can be 3 chapters from the most exciting section of the book. And in fact, the most common fault in new writers is they cram too much explanation into the early chapters. So it may be that the best chapters to choose are later in the book. So those are my top tips for getting your children's book published. Now, every year, the Chicken House and the Times run a wonderful new writers competition. Past winners have included Emily Diamond's Floodchild and Sophia Bennett's Threads. And who knows, you could be the next one. So find out details of how to enter at doublecluck.com. And who knows, this time next year, I might be reading your book.